yeah, like I try to be more active because, I like freshman 15 was real, so I'm trying to burn it off.
I wasn't.
Wow.
I FaceTime my friends all the time. We would have group Zooms on like Tuesdays and Thursdays.
I try to call like my friends from school and text them and everything.
I don't really know what to talk about with people anymore, right? Because there's not a lot happening in my life. There's not a lot happening in their life.
Like, it's just a lot of alone time, a lot of like self-studying.
The biggest change was definitely how there weren't as many just impromptu like hanging out with friends.
College social life is structured largely around one like really spontaneous interaction.
Even though I'd like call my friends and we talk, obviously it just wasn't like the same.
I think a large part of social life has just become like one-on-one or like small group interactions with people who you like really want to keep in touch with.
Obviously, like, it's very hard to like get the same kind of like connection with friends who you don't see in person. But I think just like having people know that you're like still like looking out for them and still like there for them as a friend was really good.
And then we would always have like a weekly Zoom call.
I think it's important to stick to what's comfortable in terms of like you're incoming freshman. So don't worry too much about like, oh, this is my freshman year. I have to meet a lot of new people in my school. No, this is never before seen circumstances, right?
Social life it's a really hard thing to balance. And that's what I miss the most about school and being on campus.
In the beginning of quarantine, I tried not to think about it, but I was definitely adjusting to being more like by myself.
Just like being home a lot, I've just been getting used to like being by myself and like learning to like be okay by myself.
The ultimate goal is to make sure you feel supported and you feel like you're not alone ultimately in this world. And it's a hard thing to do because if you try to reach out to people who are new at your university and try to build like a social circle, it's an awesome thing to do, but I would say stick to like what you can at first, and then if you have a very strong, if you feel very supported and you feel very within your own social circle that you're comfortable with, then you can expand out.
I don't really think so. I met a few people. I didn't like get to actually like really hang out with them just because it's quarantine and like everyone's trying to be at home, you know?
Talking in the discussion board to find someone else who lived in Portland. I would consider Colburn my friend now. And, that's a friend I made. That's also a friend that I didn't have and kind of needed.
It's very slow. I think there are people that I was very comfortable with that I'm now like far closer to.
A lot harder to make new friends and to keep in touch with acquaintances because those are the people you usually hang out in like big groups or spontaneously and stuff like that.
Everyone will be, just as social when they get to school sophomore year after having taken a year online as a freshman than they would have just gotten their freshman, because everyone will still need to make friends.
I think the friendships that I already had very solidified are now like best friends.
I think just kind of like being online and everything with like social media, I was able to like meet and chat with new people.
In breakout rooms, like I met some people who we like ended up making like a study group together with. And like I think in some classes for group projects, we were like given our groups. And so through that, we kind of bonded through like group projects and such, and like struggling through like some assignments that we had. So I think that overall I made a couple like random new friends.
In the beginning of quarantine, I was very ambitious and I wanted to make all these new drinks.
Because like on campus, again, like you have all these like spontaneous social interactions where like when you like get lunch with your friends as opposed to like eating lunch by yourself, it takes a long time because you are going to talk, and then you might like stop by coffee together and like go walk around, like you're just a lot more inefficient because of other people. But usually those inefficiencies are like things people appreciate. Whereas at home, you're more efficient, but it's not as fun, I guess.
I tried to pick up more, like doing more art. I was working out. I was plant shopping. I was just doing all these things. I was trying yoga, like literally just trying to fill my time with something. I learned how to sew.
What I basically took this quarter, and a lot of my friends did, was we just try to do as many things as possible.
Actually, a lot more active. Like every day I go biking for at least like an hour, and then I've been doing Chloe Ting. This is like my 3rd week.
I felt like I had so much more free time. And it came down to, I had this illusion of having more time, right, than I am used to. So I would end up not being efficient.
Once I finished my classes and like did my P-sets, I just kind of checked out. I think I wasn't really in the mood to do anything. It just felt like an extended vacation of doing nothing.
So at Northwestern, 1st and 2nd year students are required to live on campus. So I was in a dorm, and thankfully I did get a refund. So they gave me back my room and board costs for spring quarter.
I came straight to my house and quarantined in my room for the past 2 weeks when I first came to Korea.
Okay, yeah. So for me, I live in an apartment off campus, and so that was kind of difficult because obviously I wasn't going to be in town during quarantine. So it was just hard, like, being able to, like, staying at home and paying for rent over here.
No, so basically what they did was if you were off campus, you took that off your bill, and if you were on, that you were prorated for the time that you were on campus.
UC Berkeley students, they only get dorm housing for the 1st year, and then after that you're kind of on your own. You have to find independent, like, you just sign independent leases. And most people who sign, they sign in like January, February. And so I know a lot of them who sign a lease and they're like stuck in that lease for the next year because like the corona stuff we didn't get sent home until like mid-March. But for me, I originally signed a lease that had a clause where it was like if classes are remote, then the lease will not go into effect, which was nice. But now, like just yesterday, the city of Berkeley passed a law basically saying like you can terminate your lease within after 30 days from today, or if your lease starts more than 30 days from now, you don't have to sign it.
In order to keep that apartment, which is barely a block off campus, like it's in a really good spot, and someone would probably take it if I were to let it go. So at this point in time, I'm paying rent on my apartment that I'm not living in, just to hold the space, which in Seattle is expensive.
Was they wanted as many people to leave as possible, and if you needed to stay either because you didn't have a good home situation to go to, visa restrictions block you from going to your country, or like for example you needed to be next to Stanford Hospital because some people have like ongoing relationships with doctors or surgeries they needed and things like that, then you could petition to stay. And so they accepted a very limited number of students to stay in the spring, and obviously in a more like socially distanced way they moved people to graduate housing, so on and so forth. So like several of my Chinese international student friends were staying in Stanford housing.
My school, I think they handled the COVID situation really well. So for out-of-state students, they offered to pay for our flights. So I got to come to Seattle for free, so that was great.
For students who are not receiving financial aid, there's no tuition refund. I think I got a refund on like the campus health services.
Rolling over room and board, they didn't refund anything.
Well, at least I know for me, since I'm an out-of-state student, it might be different for in-state students, but they gave all of us a $500 refund, which is like a nice gesture, I guess, but like considering like out-of-state tuition, like just tuition is like $40K. It's like $500, it's it's like not really much.
Yeah, so our school also had this like form that students could fill out if they had like an extenuating circumstance. For example, like had to pay for flights like right away, because like in a short amount of time, like the school could case by case like cover those expenses.
A huge thing was mutual aid funds. Like I mentioned before with the like mutual aid CS help, a lot of students in partnership with like student government as well as like activist groups put together like student mutual aid funds via just like Venmo of like If you, for example, if you live in around the country and your house has an open guest room that you would be willing to let a student stay in, like you can sign up here. So students who couldn't pay the Stanford room and board or needed to go somewhere else were able to find housing from other people and their homes.